Hello, and welcome back to another Doujinshi reading from White Album 2. Today we're on part 2 of the Pilgrimage Guidebook Doujin, which is extremely interesting and extremely informative. This author has taken a trip to Strasbourg to kind of experience all the things that the characters did and written a very detailed guide about how to do it, what the recommendations are, different routes that you can follow depending on which character's point of view you want to experience. It's amazing. It also includes a lot of real life photos from the locations. So, for example, this one is a photo of the famous street, which was the title screen for White Album 2, like the new game title screen. So, time begins to move again in Strasbourg. Absolutely beautiful. So, we're going to check out another map. This is Strasbourg Station, point 1. A lot of very interesting places to check out, especially during the Christmas season. The Saint Pierre le Jeune Church. So that was the one where Haruki was supposed to meet up with Setsuna there, but didn't end up making it for the Christmas Mass. He was too busy massaging Kazusa's feet. The Rue Adolphe Seyboth and Petite France. Kleber Square and Hotel Regent Contades. Contades, I think. So these are all places where he would recommend going to experience some of the most important points of the game. Strasbourg Pilgrimage Map. Rue des Orfèvres. I would just let you read that on your own. So, this will get into a little bit more detailed, adorable map, by the way. So now we're going to learn why. The Strasbourg pilgrimage spots. Number 1, Strasbourg Station. And if it looks familiar to you, good, because this was the exact same place as you start out in when you get to CODA and you're in this like main square. Address 20 Place de la Gare, 67,000 Strasbourg, France. The setting of the beginning of CODA and the gateway to the land of Strasbourg. The scene in which Kazusa finds Haruki left an extraordinarily deep impression. It's an interesting structure, a magnificent old station building with a glass dome over at the top. Kleber Square, Part 1. I think you can read the addresses for yourself. This location is seen behind Kazusa when she and Haruki reunite. Yeah, running in bare feet, ripped tights. The view is almost unchanged from the in-game CG, and it is absolutely worth a look. Kleber Square, Part 2. The place where Haruki and Setsuna planned to meet up. Originally, the idea was to go to the Christmas Mass at the nearby cathedral after meeting here. Incidentally, this Christmas tree is apparently the largest in Europe. It was even more stunning up close, only set up at Christmas time. I love how they had to put that in there, like, just in case you end up going for a summer vacation, you're not going to see this. I feel like that would have a very different vibe to it as well. Like, you could go and kind of imagine everything that had happened, but it's not the same vibe as the Christmas vibe. Petite France, Les Lucas. The model for the package art of the PS3 Premium Edition. There are many medieval streets and buildings remaining in this area, and you may find yourself feeling as though you had just wandered into the world of the Middle Ages. Beautiful, beautiful art on the Premium Edition, by the way. Really awesome. The Rue des Orfèvres. The model for the title screen that will be familiar to any who have played White Album 2. When I played IC, I had no idea that this was the image of Strasbourg. The golden goose is a landmark. Oh yeah, you can kind of see it in the picture there. Absolutely incredible. Just, wow. Getting to see that is amazing. Hotel Regent Contades. The model for the exterior of the hotel where Haruki stayed. It's a 4-star hotel, and its interior and service were both flawless. The Cour du Corbeau, which Haruki mentioned to the driver, also exists in real life, but its exterior appearance differs. That's an interesting bit of information. The actual image of the hotel was based here, but Haruki mentioned a different hotel that exists but is not this one. Pilgrimage column, Strasbourg. It all began with a simple game magazine. In February of 2012, a certain game magazine was released. That magazine contained a round-table discussion with Fumiaki Maruto, Naoya Shimokawa, and Takeshi Nakamura, commemorating the release of Closing Chapter. The conversation covered many extraordinarily interesting topics, such as their official views on Kazusa's ending and the inside story on CODA. But among them was a heading that caught my eye. We recommend this year for a pilgrimage. If you want to fully experience moments from the story, this year, winter of 2012, is the time. You won't find a pilgrimage with a higher threshold than this, and so on. With the wording they used, they may as well have come right out and said, "Do it." That's so funny, dude. That's so... The authors of the game just being like, hey, just travel. Go see these places. That's kind of funny. They should have done a giveaway. They should have done a giveaway trip, like the pilgrimage trip. They could still do it. You know, Comiket 100 is coming up. They should do a free trip to Strasbourg. I'm going to enter it 1 billion times. The fact that the Holy Land in question was in a foreign country almost 10,000 kilometers from Japan was already a pretty high barrier. But on top of that, there was a specifically designated time frame for it. All in all, it was pretty brutal. However, when the reunion scene with Kazusa in Strasbourg and the shock of CODA came to my mind, I found myself strongly compelled to experience it at the same time and in the same place as in the story. And before I knew it, I had started working to sort out travel expenses and vacation time. Again, very dedicated person who now has a lifetime experience because of White Album 2 and his own tenacity to go and do this. And that's incredible. The album's blank spaces. I believe there was one entry on the Strasbourg pilgrimage map with C column written beneath. This is, unfortunately, a place that I was unable to find during my own pilgrimage. Dehima no Hito-san found it after with an R, after I returned. It's a street called Rue Adolphe Seboth, and it's used as a model for the background behind the character portraits in the Strasbourg metropolitan area. Beyond that, there are other points I was unable to confirm during my pilgrimage. For example, the Hotel Regent Petite France, thought to be the model for the interior of the hotel where Haruki stayed. I urge everyone who undertakes this pilgrimage in the future to fill all the blank spaces in the album, and I myself would like to retry at some point. That's really cool of him, to kind of pass the reins to other people, like, please help me try to find all of these places, and let him know. That's really cool. Walking around the city. As the capital of the Alsace region, Strasbourg itself boasts a certain scale. However, most of the pilgrimage spots and tourist attractions are located on the Grand Isle in the midst of the Ile River, roughly 2 kilometers around, and in general, going on foot is the main mode of travel. I mean, why would you not? I'm sure it's beautiful, even if just looking at architecture. In addition, there are trams running within the city, which I recommend if you want to go somewhere a little further away. There are different types of tickets, including single ride and 24-hour unlimited ride passes, so you can find the one that best suits your needs. Also, if you're going as a tourist, a lot of the time they'll have discounted tourist packages, especially for like the unlimited 24-hour passes. So definitely look those up ahead of time. As a small digression, the Strasbourg Cathedral is very much worth seeing. The Christmas Mass that Setsuna talked about wanting to attend in the story is held here. And above all, you're sure to be overwhelmed by its grandeur. Also, you could just go attend the Christmas Mass. That would be definitely a part of the pilgrimage. A place for WA2 fans to gather? If you look closely at the packaging for the PS3 Premium Edition of the game, you may notice a sign that reads Locas. That is the sign of a French restaurant that actually exists. Very, very cool. See pilgrimage spot number 3 for the location. Dehima no Hito-san and I went together to enjoy their limited Christmas menu in commemoration of our pilgrimages. Pilgrimages. I don't think I've ever said that word in my life. Pilgrimages. The price was a little on the high end at 42 euros. But we enjoyed traditional French Christmas dishes such as foie gras and guinea fowl. Okay, well, if you're eating that kind of stuff, I can understand the 42 euro price there. The atmosphere inside the restaurant was very low-key, allowing one to simply enjoy one's food and wine. So if you go in a group, I advise you to keep that in mind. AKA, don't be super loud. Massively popular in a certain corner of the world. White Album 2. And I love how they have to point that out because as of right now, White Album 2 has only been officially translated. It's only officially been released in Japanese. And it only just recently, just within the last year really, has been translated into English unofficially. So, in a certain corner of the world, it sure is more popular than most. Special roundtable discussion. Interviewer, Asukake. Oh, that's their Twitter handle. So just looking at the picture straight up, they brought a tapestry with them, right? Setsuna's beach tapestry. They also brought the 2 autograph boards, and these autograph boards weren't even released together. One was released at a Comiket officially by Aquaplus, and one was included with the PS3 special edition. So this is definitely a collector. I mean, we already kind of figured they're a super fan, but still. Meeting by chance and aiming for maximum cringiness. Oh boy. The 2 of you came to Strasbourg by different routes. Did your linking up there go well? About that, our meeting up there was actually by complete coincidence. We were mutuals on Twitter before we left on our respective trips, but we didn't really have plans to meet up or anything like that. Yes, Dehima-san did start following me shortly before I left, and at that point I simply thought, oh, there's someone who's doing the same thing as I am. Right, I hadn't imagined that there would be anyone other than me who would take the challenge from that specific game MAGA interview so directly and actually act on it. So when we arrived there, we did exchange information now and then, but even within all of that, it never really led to any discussion of meeting up. It just blows my mind that these 2 people decided to do the same thing at the same time, and they weren't like, hey, let's meet up. We were both fully engrossed and just walking around at that point, so how were we able to run into each other? It came down to a Kazusa tote bag. Within Dehima-sama's tweets from Strasbourg was one that remarked, a Kazusa tote bag probably stands out a bit in a foreign country. And that stuck with me. There's the tote bag. I've been carrying it around ever since I left from Haneda Airport. It was nighttime on Christmas Eve, right near Kleber Square. I was wandering around and suddenly, a Kazusa tote bag leapt into my field of vision. I went, hang on, and the first time I spoke to another tourist in Strasbourg. I did indeed turn to Meister-san. What a chance meeting. That is so funny. I guess if I ever get to Strasbourg, I'll just have to deck myself out in White Album 2 gear and see if anybody will be like, hey. The Kazusa tote bag was so dazzling that I couldn't look straight at it. Here I was, walking around downtown Strasbourg, and I heard someone call out in Japanese. I was like, wait, Japanese? And it turns out I was the one being addressed. And by a fellow pilgrim at that. The instrumental version of After All was playing in my head. So cheesy, so cute. That's amazing. Incidentally, what happened once you met up? It was like we were soulmates from the moment we met. As fellow fools of the sort who would travel all the way to Strasbourg for a pilgrimage, we immediately opened up to each other and went to get dinner. That's so fun. That's so cute. Yeah, honestly, when I first met Meister-san, I also thought, this person is the same kind of fool as I am. Initial determination from route choices. This is important because as they outlined earlier in the doujin, you could either follow Kazusa's route or Setsuna's route. I guess, or Haruki's route, but Haruki and Setsuna weren't that different. I see. So there wasn't really any arrangement beforehand. Each of you just decided on your own to go to Strasbourg. That's some pretty impressive motivation. By the way, at what point was it you first started thinking about doing these pilgrimages and making plans? I think I went into action pretty immediately after reading that game manga issue. It came out in January or February of 2012. So within whichever month it was, I went to my boss and said I wanted to take a vacation at the end of the year. My boss was pretty surprised that I would bring up an end-of-year vacation at the beginning of the year. Surprised, but this is a good idea. I mean, if you're working for a company and you tell them way ahead of time, they'll probably be happy more than anything. I'd been carrying it around ever since I left from Haneda Airport. It was nighttime on Christmas Eve, right near Kleber Square. Wait a minute. This was something we already read. There is absolutely a carryover of the middle part to the end part. That is definitely a mistranslation. Okay, yeah, very odd. Okay. The second part and the fourth part are the same exact thing. That is not how it was in the original book, so definitely someone missed something there. Setsuna's route goes through Paris. And with that being a pretty major itinerary for France, getting it set up through a travel agency might be easy. But Kazusa's route requires taking a night train, which makes it a little unusual. Everything was for the pilgrimage. Did you both have travel agencies handle travel insurance? Travel insurance is so interesting. I've never actually had travel insurance despite traveling everywhere. Not to say it's not necessary, it's a very good thing to have, but I feel like coming from the United States where healthcare is so expensive, going to another country, I'm like, you know what, even uninsured, it's so much cheaper than being insured and in the US. So something to think about as the cultural difference here. If I'd paid with my credit card, it would have brought insurance with it. But the travel agency I was working with only dealt in cash. After that, it occurred to me that I shouldn't leave absolutely everything up to the travel agency, so I arranged everything myself. I looked up insurance companies that did damage insurance, and by entering the place I was going and the number of days, I was able to go through the whole process online, including getting an estimate. After getting my plane tickets, I went ahead and entered the travel insurance handled by that travel agency. I didn't know much about travel insurance, so I figured talking to an agent before I decided would help me feel more at ease about it. This honestly reads like an advertisement for travel insurance. The details and monetary amounts of guarantees can vary a lot, so if you can handle the arrangements on your own, it might be best to pick and choose what you need and how much. So, when did you start thinking about foreign currency exchange? The euro was less expensive last year, 2012, than it is this year, 2013. So I did my currency exchange domestically in advance. But I also didn't know much about public safety in Strasbourg. Around October, I exchanged just as much as I thought I needed to avoid getting into trouble. I mean, 1, theft, but 2, just straight up losing it is also really scary. I do not recommend keeping all of your money in one place if you are traveling. I exchanged just as much as I thought I would need to be comfortable at a domestic bank around a month before my departure. It was around 50,000 yen. 50,000 is not a lot. 50,000 is like maybe $450 for a whole vacation. I feel like that's a little bit low. I had already paid for my plane tickets, so my biggest on-location spending was going to be on hotels and the TGV. But I knew that I could look those up and pay for them in advance by credit card. I mainly used my European currency on food, traveling short distances on the metro, and the like. I exchanged about 30,000 to start with. Again, about like $250. I had also paid for the night train and all of that from home in advance, and I was scared of carrying around too much money at once. Like I said, very good idea. I think paying in advance whenever possible helped a lot. It helps cut down on rushing around once you've reached your destination. And it's safer. The TGV, Advance Reservations versus just leaping in. Also, regarding making reservations online from home, there's a lot you can do with Google Translate. Dude, this is so true. I'm not saying Google Translate is perfect, but it is so helpful while traveling. I made my TGV reservations from home, but I can't read any English, so I had no idea what first class and second class cabins were. I just threw everything in the translator and carefully clicked my way through the reservation process. I skipped making my reservation before I went, but I had completely underestimated the chaos of the TGV in Christmas season. The train that I had initially looked up and planned to ride was completely sold out of seats. Oh boy. That's so funny. Christmas chaos anywhere is crazy. Christmas chaos, try saying that 5 times fast. In a place known for Christmas tourism, absolutely insane. The very last train from Paris to Strasbourg that day had a single first-class seat left. I was ready to go, so I just went, sure, I'll take it, and rode first class. How bold. So, in general, I think making your reservations online before you leave will give you better certainty. You can also get discounts that way, which is probably the most important part. It's kind of like getting plane tickets in Japan. They'll be cheaper if you buy them early, but you also can't cancel them later. Another important thing. If you want to keep a loose itinerary, don't buy in advance. But if you buy in advance, you save a lot of money and you don't have to risk, something being sold out. At any rate, there were a whole lot of people going from Paris to Strasbourg for Christmas. The daytime trains there were almost completely packed, and I was miraculously able to board one at a weird hour of the night. So I definitely recommend getting tickets in advance for that kind of thing. Definitely. In the pages I wrote about Kazusa's route, I talked a little about changes in Europe's train schedules in winter, so you can refer to that as well. And then moving on to unofficial opinions of the Game Maga interview. So this was just a magazine, right? A magazine that reviewed a bunch of different types of games, specifically dating sims, visual novel type games. And they had recommended, you should take a pilgrimage to Strasbourg. That was how this whole pilgrimage business started for these two. So I imagine it's important to get communication equipment, like a cell phone, to help avoid getting into trouble while abroad. What did you do in that realm? I used rental Wi-Fi. I paid for it before my departure, and I picked it up in the airport before I left Japan. Safer? but more expensive if you pick up Wi-Fi in your home country. Usually, and I say usually, no guarantee, it's cheaper to get the Wi-Fi at the airport you land in. My own smartphone was compatible for overseas use, so I used a fixed amount data packet service. I think that sort of thing changes depending on your itinerary and way of using it, though. And you got to be careful because some countries have different kinds of towers than your home country, and your SIM card might not be compatible, or even the phone might not be compatible with certain countries. So definitely look that up ahead of time. Right? I looked up whether I could use my own phone abroad just to see. But in my case, my itinerary was longer on account of my travel through countries other than France. I compared the two options, and though there's an initial expense for the rental Wi-Fi, the longer you use it, the more cost-effective it becomes. Which is also something to think about. On top of that, I took my tablet computer with me, so rental Wi-Fi ended up being my choice for using both of them. There is a drawback, though. If you're going through several different countries like I did, the equipment you use for rental Wi-Fi changes. So while the rental fee itself doesn't change, you do end up with more stuff to lug around. Also, I had to pay attention to the Wi-Fi's battery. That's something actually you should note. Because if you're going to 5 different countries, you don't want to rent Wi-Fi 5 different times, you know? As for me, I made my decision because my stay abroad was comparatively short at 3 days, and more importantly because the lack of advanced preparations necessary was appealing. On the flip side, if you accidentally connect to an unaffiliated mobile phone company while you're there, the fixed amount service won't apply, and you'll find yourself with a hefty bill when you get back. Now, this is to say using data is very dangerous. But if you turn off your data and you only use free Wi-Fi, that is another way you can get away with it. Like most hotels these days have Wi-Fi, most cafes have Wi-Fi. Not the most convenient thing if you're traveling on trains and stuff because you can't look anything up unless the trains have Wi-Fi. But in a crunch, there's absolutely ways to get it. Well, in any case, it's essential that you have a setup that will allow you to communicate at any time. Right? The relief of being able to look things up online whenever you're in a pinch is hard to deny. Now, regarding luggage, how much did the two of you take on your trips? Oh, look at that beautiful, beautiful archway. I went light. A small suitcase and a Boston bag that I could take with me on the train. The plane and the train. My particular route had eating frozen mandarins on the night train as a major event. And if I had too much to carry with me at that time, it would make things much more difficult to manage. So I tried to keep it as compact as possible. I figured I could buy anything I was missing once I got there. And this is the kind of thing I would recommend as well, especially if you plan on walking and seeing a lot of places, not staying in one hotel for very long. Just pack lightly. You'd be surprised how little clothing you actually do need. And most hotels have laundry machines, so you can just do your wash real quick before you go to bed. I took a large suitcase, about hip height standing up, and a small Boston bag that I could take with me when walking around town. I figured better to go too big than too small, and I was also taking careful measures against the cold. Ooh, important factoid that it was pretty cold then. There's some room left for this year, right? What do you mean? Well, when we went, it was right after the PS3 edition had come out. It was tough trying to make enough space for the premium edition with all its packaging. That's cute and funny. My suitcase was pretty big, so I did have room, but I guess it was more difficult for Dejima-san. And this one wanted to take the PS3 itself too. Why don't you give us all the details that led you to give that up? No, I don't think anyone would seriously try to do that. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if someone seriously tried to do that. So then German versus French. What did you do when it came to communication abroad? I mainly relied on gesturing and broken English. I learned almost no French. I was pretty much okay in my hotel, but out in town, it was a struggle. Yeah, because your hotel is going to be used to people coming and staying from all over, not necessarily shops. I did basically the same thing as Dejima-san. The only French phrase I learned before I left was, "Please take me to the Hotel Cour du Corbeau." Haruki said that. I practiced it plenty of times so I could say it as smoothly as Haruki-kun. He didn't say it super smoothly, but it was very cute. I didn't say it smoothly either, to be fair. You probably said it to the guy driving the taxi with a big grin on your face. Yep. Well, I wasn't able to say anything beyond that, so when it came to using taxis in other cases, I generally just pointed to the place on Google Maps. Merci was also extremely handy. Indeed, if I just said merci with a smile, things tended to work out. And the people there will make an effort to understand what you're saying, so it's important to try your best to put your point across without being shy. Extremely important while traveling to not be shy. How are people supposed to know what you want to say if you can't say it? So, with that, this being an extremely long guide, I think we will stop there for now. So, thanks so much for joining me on this part of the White Album 2 Pilgrimage Guidebook, and I'll be back with the next part shortly. Until then, hope you take care. See you!